Newcastle United has done it again. Zero first team signings in the past 2 years, and we continue to defy the odds. We are a team that is looking to get back into Champions League football. And when you look at the form table since the start of 2025, we are actually second in the form table. Liverpool ahead by only 1 point. And that, of course, is the team that we have recently beat in a cup final. So Newcastle, in terms of form, probably is the best performing team in this country so far in 2025. And Eddie Howe deserves so much credit because I think, again, especially when you look at Newcastle, look at the teams around Newcastle, we haven't improved our squad. If anything, losing Anderson and Minter last summer probably damaged the squad a little bit. So the fact that we have downgraded and yet we have still been better in the league, I think it's phenomenal. If we can get Champions League football this season, that is Newcastle's best ever season in my lifetime. You cannot top that in terms of my lifetime. Now, despite how well Newcastle are doing, teams around us are still trying to get one over Newcastle. They're still trying to get one over the Premier League. And it's absolute BS, especially Chelsea. And speaking of Chelsea, Rory Jennings has decided to call me out over the past couple of days. If you guys want to see me make a response video with this absolute melon, make sure to smash that like button. 500 likes on this video and we'll make a response more. Because honestly, you will not believe this guy's call out message to me. He's just on a different planet. But yeah, back on topic. Speaking of Chelsea, of course, that's probably the big topic in this video because despite how well Newcastle are doing, there's still a lot of BS going on behind the scenes, and Newcastle are getting done dirty by some of these other teams, and we want to get into it in this video. We want to get through it all. But first off, from me, guys, if you enjoy the content, make sure to smash the like button. Appreciate the support as always. And let's just get into Chelsea. Let's just get into the meat, get into the bone straight away. You might have seen a bit about Chelsea over the past week on social media, but the big topic being is that Chelsea's actually sought their women's team for £200 million. And the idea being is that Chelsea would have used that £200 million they made from their own women's team, and that money would have went back into FFP. That money would have went into PSR, and it would have went in and solved all of Chelsea's financial problems with buying all these players. And Chelsea, historically, when you look at them every single summer, they're always a team that looks for loopholes. And I'm not going to criticise a club for wanting to do that, because if they can find a loophole in the system, fair enough, I understand that. But this one's a dodgy one. I can't lie, this is very dodgy. So Chelsea have basically sought their women's team for £200 million. And UEFA has then came back to Chelsea and went, well, that money's not going to go into FFP. That money's not going back to sort any of your financial issues out. And UEFA has turned down Chelsea's approach. Now, the Premier League has not turned down this approach. They're still currently investigating this. So UEFA said no, the Premier League hasn't given an answer yet. And again, you want to keep an eye and see what the Premier League says. But it's likely that the Premier League will also back UEFA's claim and go, no, that's not going to work at all. And this is the same Chelsea team that has also made £90 million from selling hotels to themselves. So it's just like Chelsea sold their own hotel facilities to themselves for £90 million. And that somehow, under this FFP loophole, has counted towards their financial side of things. And of course, it's not just Chelsea's fault. Obviously, when you look at teams around us in this table, Manchester City, of course, have an active 115 charges that are, of course, still under investigation. And especially these big six clubs, there are some dodgy behaviours going on behind the scenes. And Chelsea's the worst. I think Chelsea, by far, is the worst for doing this. Every single season, they're trying to find something to go their way. And it's not fair on your teams, is it? I think in terms of competitiveness in the Premier League, yesterday was a great example. This is the second season in a row where the three newly promoted teams will all go back down. None of them can compete. FFP restricts them from spending heavily. They haven't got a good enough team to stay in the Premier League. Every single team that will continue to come up will all go back down. And ironically, in the past few years, the one team that has been promoted from the Championship that has actually done the most work and has been able to perform as well as they have was the one that got the points deduction. Nottingham Forest came up to the Premier League, spent way more than they should have, bought about 20 players in one window. Some of them were stinkers, example being Jesse Lingard. Of course, he didn't work out. Some of the players didn't work out, but the ones that did work out was amazing for Forest. Took a points deduction, took it on the chin, stayed up the season after that, and look at where they are now. They're going to Wembley. They've got a chance of getting into an FA Cup final, and they are still in the top four this season. Nuno, for me, is easily the manager of the season. Forest, of course, need to get the job done. They need to make sure they get Champions League football or potentially win the FA Cup. If they can do either of those two things this season, Nuno hands-on for me as manager of the season, which is impressive because, again, in our point of view, look how amazing Eddie Howe has been, and I still think he's been second best to Nuno just because of how big of an achievement that is on Nottingham Forest. And they've been able to do that because they've broken the Premier League rules, spent more than they should have, took a point deduction on the chin, and they've actually bounced back from that point deduction, and they've been able to do well. And that, ironically, is probably the only newly promoted team in the past few years that's actually been able to do well because they've broken the rules and they've been able to then come back and be stronger from it. And that's a real competitive problem. Look at the teams at the top of the table. I mentioned the obvious one before, Chelsea. Look at the amount of players they are signing every single season. And when FFP was implemented, of course, teams like Chelsea, Man U, Liverpool, City, these teams already had sellable assets. FFP for me only works when everyone starts at zero. But this is Newcastle when FFP came in. And this is the big six when FFP came because they already had good players that they were able to sell. So when they sold those good players, all of a sudden those players sales they can just put straight back into new signing. FFP just restricts other teams from spending. It doesn't have any factor really in the big teams because they've already got a good squad to begin off with. So I don't believe in this FFP rubbish. We can come out here in the video and we can go through examples like this. Chelsea are dodgy. I'm going to be honest now. I'm quite a neutral fan towards Chelsea. With the exception of Rory Jens, I can't bloody stand him. I don't mind anything else about Chelsea. Honestly, I don't mind Chelsea at all, but it is dodgy. Selling your women's team for £200 million. I mean, we were sold for 300 million. You sold your women's team for 2/3 of that price. And of course, they're then going to put that £200 million back into Chelsea. And that's not to mention the obvious points being, of course, again, the hotels. £90 million on hotels. That is questionable. How on earth are the hotels worth £90 million? Of course, again, that money would have went back into Chelsea, would have solved the FFP, would have solved the PSR, and Chelsea would have went spend, or they would have signed another 15 players like they normally do every summer window. And that's just one team as well. Look at City, as I mentioned before. Teams are going to look for loopholes. I don't blame a team for looking to do that. However, we are always going to call it out when we see it. And Newcastle, I feel like we're bringing these points up. Again, you've got to congratulate Newcastle and you really got to respect how well Newcastle have been because zero signs past 2 years hasn't made a difference. Eddie Howe is still defying the odds. He is still just going for it. And Newcastle, we've got guaranteed European football next season, but of course are looking to the Champions League football. I feel like we need to do it. We've got a lot of favourable home fixtures. To be honest, I think the 3 away games, are the games now that are really going to dictate that. Obviously, Chelsea at home as well, but reality being Villa away, Brighton away, Arsenal away. Of course, Brighton and Arsenal in the league are games we never get points at anyway, so they're the sort of ones we just need to stick some results in there. Win the home games, I think we've got Champions League football. I'm very confident. I still think the likes of Chelsea, City around us. Maybe Forest. I think these are teams that are still going to drop points. They're still going to leak a few points here and there. Newcastle just need to do their job, and I think we've got it. In terms of this, though, Chelsea, you are dodgy. That is very dodgy. So I thought we'd talk about that because despite that, of course, being announced by some articles and some social media pages over the last week, hasn't got that much attention. It really hasn't got that much attention considering how big of a potential scandal this could be. UEFA said no. UEFA's not having any of it. The Premier League has still not said no yet. They are still investigating it. Again, we will keep a close eye on the Premier League to make sure they do reject that. If they don't reject that, we'll be having a different video. We'll be having a different conversation down the line. But for now, it was just me just kind of updating you a bit here, just letting you know how things have been. And it's more so of a video just to, I guess, what's the word for this? To highlight Newcastle even more because, again, with all this stuff going on in the background, Newcastle still is performing on the pitch despite all of these heavy restrictions. But no more. This summer window coming up, Newcastle will have those restrictions lifted. They'll be able to actually spend money because we've already made the player sales. We haven't spent any players really in 2 years. So Newcastle has money there. They will look to bring players in. And depending on what form of European football we have, the standard of play, I think, will probably dictate depending on that. So a massive window coming up for Newcastle. Just need to do our job now. Things are looking good. As I said in the intro, if you want me to respond to Rory Jennings, make sure let me know. Honestly, he's doing my head in. I'm gonna get this out of the way and I'll be done with him because I'm sick of seeing this guy's face. But yeah, he's decided to call me out yesterday. But a few more videos we get planned, of course. Then obviously Manchester United on Sunday. Looking forward to that one. I need to show them respect. I know they're rubbish this season, but Man U is still Man U, and they do not mess around if we don't turn up. So let's make sure we get the job done against them. Take care, though, and we will see you all in the next one.